Hello, Abigail here with the astrology of this week. Guess what, guys? While there is some tension in this week, there's also some really nice stuff, and it's gonna feel good. It's there's some culmination. Yes, there's some measure of friction involved because we have some squares, but Venus is moving into a new sign. We have a full moon in Libra. There's just an element of feeling like things are finally starting to click. And that's pretty exciting. So let's get into it. On Monday, Venus goes into Taurus. Venus is domicile in Taurus, which means it rules Taurus, and Taurus is its home. And this is nice. It's good for relationships. It's good for comfort and care. It's good for finding things that are in alignment with our specific frequency and vibration. It's just a really lovely vibe. And that's what we start the week with. And it also means that the full moon later this week, which is a Libra full moon, will be ruled by, yes, a domicile Venus, which I am absolutely here for and excited for. So that's kind of like the highlight of this week. Um, Check where this is moving into in your chart, what house is going to get this Venusian blessing, where do we get to kind of vibe a little bit. We're also going to be moving into a Jupiter sextile in a couple of weeks, which is really going to open things up. And so definitely the first few days of this week feel very nice and refreshed and rejuvenated. There's going to be a pep in our step. There's going to be a lot of pleasure seeking behavior. Everyone's going to be seeking out their favorite little snacks. Especially if you're in the northern hemisphere where spring is breaking loose, getting like a little iced sweet treat for yourself. Things like that like are abundant in this season. So really enjoy the physical pleasures of life. Really enjoy the tangible things. It is time to celebrate that thing. And also it's time to celebrate love and connection and the people that make us feel comfortable and loved. Then we move into Thursday, which is kind of the red letter day of this week. We get the Libra full moon. We also get the Mercury trine with Jupiter. And this has been something that has had 3 iterations because of the retrograde. And so it really feels as though something is locking in. It's like when you turn a cog and it slips into the other gear, and then things start to move together. And I'm really excited. I also think some good news is going to be coming in. Once again, check your charts to see what kind of good news it might be, depending on where this trine is happening. But there's an element of hope and joy and something in the Mercury retrograde coming unstuck. It's a peek into our future. Also, Jupiter is still at 15 degrees where it's stationed, even though we're finally starting to shift forward. So there is kind of an element of a long awaited hope or message or desire that's starting to get some legs and in a pretty impressive way. You've been waiting for this for a minute, if not just for this Mercury retrograde, but also during the Jupiter retrograde, which started last year. So this is just a day where things are going to start moving. There's also, because it's on a full moon day, there is this element of release and of letting things go. And also, there's an element, and this has kind of been happening because this is very deeply tied to the new moon in Pisces, even though it's not on the same axis. There is this element of inviting something in, of being like, hey, I have made space for something really beautiful and precious to arrive in my life. And I think that's definitely going to be, pardon me, something that's going to develop into the summer as Jupiter starts picking up speed. Also with Libra full moon, I will of course make a different video. There is a bit of a testy aspect because it is square Jupiter, but from my perspective as an astrologer, while Jupiter squares can absolutely be frustrating, Jupiter squares are the luck that we make. Jupiter squares, depending on which planet, it is the form of luck that we create when we step out in difficult and unsure territory and take a bet and take a risk. It reminds me of like the Wheel of Fortune, which is the card of this year, and spinning it and taking a bet on the future. And no, it's not stable. It can be scary, but we're going to be taking a spin on this full moon in Libra, and we're going to be betting on ourselves. And we have the support of Venus, freshly moved into Taurus. We are going, it'll be at 3 degrees. If it's conjunct anything in your chart, good for you. Um, and so there's an element of us taking our destiny into our hands, moving forward. Also, there's going to be another domicile rulership in 2 weeks with the new moon in Aries. It is a little fraught because it is conjunct Chiron, but it is ruled by a domicile Mars. And so it feels like this is a progressive story of us betting on ourselves. The reason I said that this full moon is tied to the new moon in Pisces is because the new moon in Pisces hosted another Jupiter square. I'm pretty sure it was a Jupiter Venus square. I'm recording this late, so I'm a little fuzzy. But we had another square. Yes, the Jupiter Venus square. We had another square with Jupiter when we had that new moon, and it's going to come back in an echo with some different topics with this square with the sun and with this T square and the full moon. And the outlet of that T square is then, of course, Capricorn, which is this idea of creating our own sense of abundance, which I will, of course, expand on in another video. But it's just a moment that feels well deserved. It feels like we need this. And if you can on Thursday, take some time to yourself to really look back on the things that you've done, on the things that you've achieved. Look back at the things that seemed possible at the time that have happened as an inspiration for doing the same thing this time, stepping out on faith to attain and build something that you deserve to have, that is in alignment with you, but may not feel possible in this moment. And I think in this moment, you're going to start to feel that it is possible. And like I said, that Mercury Jupiter trine has happened 2 other times. And it might behoove you, I should have written down my notes and I didn't. Sorry, guys. Behoove you to go see when those were. The last one wasn't that long ago because we had Mercury retrograde and then it stationed at 8 degrees. So it wasn't that long ago that we had that for second Mercury Jupiter trine. But there is a story of progress, messages of hope, psychic expansion and growth, connection to things that matter to us, and viewing care as protection. Viewing care as I ate dairy-free ice cream before this, and that's on me, which is why I'm feeling very gunky. Because while it doesn't have dairy, it does have a lot of gums and stuff in it. Anyways, Cancer placements in general, I find, especially the benefics, are about creating safety, about creating comfort and care. And so there is an element of us finding safety and comfort and care. It is also the fact that while things have been difficult for a lot of us in the world, is even more obviously in chaos than we maybe have wanted to admit in the past. you know, Safety is valuable, connection and care is valuable. And Jupiter, while a lot of people are like, oh, all this stuff is happening. What is Jupiter doing? It could be worse. It could be worse. And Jupiter has been cushioning a lot of the stuff that's been going on in the sky. So don't get mad at Jupiter. They have been adding cushions in places we didn't know we needed it. And that is that kind of being held energy of Jupiter and Cancer. So look for where you have been protected. I also think a lot of us from this year of Jupiter and Cancer are going to look back in a couple of years and go, oh, other things were happening around me that I was not aware of, that Jupiter was buffering me from, that Jupiter was creating space for me to experience and grow and have the courage to move forward without having to see all the scary things behind the veil. So, don't slam Jupiter here. But yeah, I'll do another video on this day. Of course, the Mercury Jupiter trine will be a part of that conversation. But then we do have the weekend, and Friday kind of bring the actual tricky astrology of this week, which is Venus square Pluto. When we have the personal planets hit the outer planets, it's not necessarily catastrophe or disaster necessarily. I do find it has to have spurring moments in other parts of the chart. But we are faced with, especially with Pluto, with the decay of things, with death, with endings, with maybe our frustration at how an ending happened. Um, a Venus square Pluto will also really highlight, especially in Taurus, kind of with the, dryness of Aquarius energy, of like where our needs are not being met, where our emotional and physical needs have not been cared for. This is also because it is one of the modern outer planets, it's going to be on a systemic level. So there will be the personal kind of representation in the chart, and then there will be the mundane astrology and the systems of it all, and how your personal lack relationally is a byproduct, not just of the individuals who have caused harm or who have not shown up for you, but also also the system that drains and steals and takes and destroys is also a part of it. And it doesn't like remove responsibility from an individual to be a good person, to be kind and caring, to hold healthy boundaries, and to be responsible for themselves. But it does put it into perspective of how the treatment of how we were treated by parents and siblings and family members is all a systemic problem as well. And while it doesn't, remove the pain and damage that has been caused by people in our personal lives, it does put in perspective at the broader picture. Venus square Pluto is also going to bring death in some form, an ending. I also have had several people that I know and clients who have really been holding on to things that are already clearly dead. And I'm one to talk because I have a recent experience with hanging on too long. So I'm not judging. But this, Venus Pluto square is a moment where it's like, is this what you're choosing? Is this dead thing, poke, poke, like, is this dead thing the thing you're going to stick with? The thing that's not meeting your needs, the thing that's not coming to you and making your life better, you're going to stay with that thing? That relationship that's basically necrotic at this point? That's very much the vibe. And so if you have been clearing and purging and you're in like a dark night moment, or you were already kind of letting things go, this is a moment of confirmation and affirmation. If you are holding on to something that is well past its prime, that the eclipses were trying to pry from your little fingers, this is going to be a time when that's really going to come into sharp relief. And maybe you continue to hold on, and that, no tea, no shade. The heart wants what the heart wants. But this moment is kind of bringing an inescapable snapshot that you will look on later when it's actually over and be like, oh yeah, the signs were there. The signs were signing and I just wasn't ready, which is also fine. But just know that that'll come up. When I see these big outer planets, we're also looking at a lot of lies and deception. I wouldn't be surprised if for those of us in the US, we're not looking at government leaks. Somebody personal, Venus, going up against the system and empire, Pluto, and pointing out the devastation that has been caused and the loss of life specifically, because Venus and Pluto is the taking away of a soul, whether in a breakup, whether by actual death. And so we can look for that. On top of that, on Sunday, we get Sun square Jupiter. And so, like I said before, I find that non-malefic planets, so, Venus, Mercury, the sun, a square with Jupiter to me isn't necessarily bad. It's just this idea that we're not going to get the thing that we want handed to us. There is an element of having to create and to take accountability and responsibility for some Jupiterian things. Like Jupiter doesn't always just hand us luck. Sometimes luck is what we create and make it. And that's just as legitimate as the random shit that shows up. I think sometimes, especially in capitalism, where we have this weird, twisted, honestly, intentionally conflicting thing where it's like, oh, if you're naturally gifted and you don't need training, you're just better than everyone else. But then also being like, oh, you didn't work for it, so you don't deserve it. So there's this cognitive dissonance being like, oh, you're better if you just have stuff naturally, aka the wealthy. And if you don't work and don't slave away at something that you naturally don't have, it's like, oh, what a loser. And so it's kind of this vibe of like, the luck that I create is just as valid as the luck that just shows up. And while the luck that we create does take effort and work, and if you have a chart that doesn't have a lot of squares, this might be really hard for you. But if you have any squares in your chart, you are well familiar with this energy. The luck that you create is just as legitimate. The manifestations you invest in, the spell work, is just as legitimate as stuff that literally beams down from the sky. And they're just different kinds of the same thing. They're not opposing, they're not better or worse than the other. And so we have to create our own luck. There is, especially with like the Mercury Jupiter trine earlier this week, there is this element of being like, oh, I know what I want. I'm not sure how we're getting there, but I know what I want. And this sun square is challenging us to take what we know and move forward with it, to take what we know and be like, I'm about to go get it, I'm about to go take it. It's also very Mars ruled energy. It's also very Jupiter and Cancer energy. This also involves like, because of where Mars is, this is also going to have an element of ethics and of morals, because Mars in Pisces is very driven by ethos. And so these choices are also, you're going to know they're the right choice because they may not make sense in the moment in the sense of like practicality and money, but they will make sense in the context of your ethics, in the context of your morals, in the context of your belief in higher things, in your ability to be empathetic. And so it may not seem as viable as something that's currently kind of working for you. It may seem a bit idealistic, but it's true to you. And that's what that square asks, that you commit to something that is true to you and that you work on it because it is true to you. And Jupiter eventually, maybe not in this square specifically, but down the road will reward you for this moment, um, for this kind of step out on faith. And also, it's the first aspect that we get where Jupiter's not at 15 degrees that we have seen in a long time. And so there is this feeling of like, we've already taken some steps here, especially during the Mercury retrograde, especially with the Mercury Jupiter trines. And now is the time to start to push against the resistance that progress is always kind of met with, and to be brave and courageous and to move forward. It is a beautiful energy. The stuff that you invest in is really going to have a lot of just value, not necessarily monetarily, although I do think that is still involved, but value for you, value for your soul, and value for you feeling that it is aligned with your path and your purpose. So while no, this energy is not easy, it is the energy of honesty. The Venus square Pluto is also feeding into this kind of like raw, raw truth of like, oh, this is not meant for me. And I need to create, or at the very least be in partnership to create what is meant for me, because the only way to create something in alignment with me is to infuse myself with it, and that requires work, and that does not happen with just random luck that falls from the sky. It happens because you have invested a part of yourself, a part of your soul into something that has value to you. And so this week is a great week to start things. There will be a little pushback, there will be a little residual stuff from the retrograde, but the things that we plan and we start to work on this week really are going to take legs, especially once we get into Cancer season, specifically that new moon in Cancer. I just want to see what's coming up. Yeah. And then, just kind of peeking a little bit ahead into next week, we also have Mars moving into Aries, which, while Mercury still has to follow, we're finally getting things out of Pisces, guys. And while I love Pisces, it was a lot to have everything there for so long and to feel all those shifts and changes. And while we will still get a planetary pileup, we are barreling towards the malefic conjunction, which I'm going to go look and see when that is, so we can all collectively hold hands and cry. I just spoke to a client about, it's on the 19th. It's going to be right after that new moon in Aries, like 2 days. while in like personal charts, it can show up and be really aggressive and bombastic. It is nothing compared to um, the effects in mundane astrology, in the astrology of the world. So just know that things can and will get more spicy. And we have to find ways, very Jupiter and Cancer, of collective care to care for and hold each other. And we're going to have to adjust at lightning speed, especially in the next probably 6 months. So this is not, I hate everyone always being like, oh, anytime they see something, because people do rage bait so often, they're like, oh no, you're catastrophizing. It's like, no, guys, it's bad. We're in a fuel shortage because of the shit that a bunch of pedophile oligarchies have done. So, and also just having like every single conspiracy theory that I was told about in the last 20 years be basically true. I'm like, guys, we are the conspiracy theory. So just know that there is tenuous astrology coming up, happening, but this week specifically is really a moment that is especially built for people who are putting in the work. It is beautifully built for people who are stepping out into their path and purpose on blind faith, who are being courageous and are riding into the future, believing that good things are going to happen, believing that even if they have no physical proof that things are going to get better, that they are, because they are doing the work, because they are part. And I'm not saying like work in a capitalistic sense. I mean, work is in like, doing the little things for yourself. Work is in like doing your magical practice and things like that. I'm using work in the sense of like um, non-capitalistic labor. I'll say that. So buckle in. Start that project that you have been percolating over the Mercury retrograde. Start that, move forward on that dream that you like saw in a lucid vision. This is the time to get things moving, especially since we get kind of more actionable astrology, specifically in Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer season. So now is the time to get things started. The speed at which they move, I knew there was a reason that I looked at that Mars Saturn conjunction. The speed at which they move, especially if you are currently in a tense situation, whether work wise or relationally, definitely going to be amplified and sped up by that Mars Saturn conjunction. So get your plans in place now, because very likely, depending on your chart, things could implode by Taurus season, and you will need to have your plans in place for something that is more aligned with you, and also not a survival. Like, obviously I get the sense that a lot of us are surviving, but it's not like a survival situation. It's not a survival relationship. It's not a survival job. This is a dream job that you're taking a risk on. This is a dream project that you're taking a risk on. This is a dream relationship that you are being brave enough to risk being hurt in again. So buckle up, hold hands, and let's jump together into a week where we really get to start moving things. And we also get to see things through a clearer, truer lens, while also understanding that harsh reality and magical, abundant manifestation and desire can coexist and be structures that build off of each other. Anyways, my loves, that is my reading for this week. If you have any questions, you can pop them below. Please like and subscribe. Makes my day, and really makes me feel, the value of my work, which is something, as a Virgo rising, Virgo moon, it means a lot to me. And also someone with Saturn in the sixth. But yeah, also you can book a chart reading with me. You can either email me at thekeenwitch.proton.me, or you can go to my website and book something, or you can DM me on Instagram. There are multiple ways to contact me. I'm more than happy to even talk about doing something that might be a little more custom. Always here to creatively think. It's the joy of me having midheaven conjunct the South Node in the 10th. But my loves, I hope you have a lovely week. And I'm excited to see where we go individually, as a collective, as a little group here together, and really celebrate the wins. I also want to do like one of my videos, I think in Cancer season, for those who've been watching for a minute. I want to like be like, hey, how did that project go? Hey, how did that leap of faith go and how is it going? Because I think for some of it's going to be really life changing, and I'm excited for that. Anyways, have a blessed week. Have a blessed full moon in Libra. Keep an eye out for that video, and I will talk to you all later.